One man versus the city's shadows. A ledger can free a man or bury him. Stay with me as a quiet bookkeeper stakes his life on bright glass and public eyes. Ronan Pike left the coin laundry with a paper bag that held nothing but an old ledger and the smell of detergent, a clean scent that mocked the grime on the city's bricks. He had promised himself that tonight he would not rehearse fear, would not keep checking the roofs for watchers, would not name the alleys like saints. Promises crumple in pockets. He moved along Ashfield Avenue as buses sighed and storefront neon trembled in the puddles, counting cameras, counting windows, counting the ways a quiet man can be audited by people who never pay tax in daylight. The ledger under his arm was the last artifact from a job he quit after a payoff dispute ended with blood and a silence that rang louder than sirens. He carried it because a text told him to bring it, because a voice note recorded years ago now traveled as a leash, because a charity where he kept decent books would suffer if he did not choose where to stand. He chose glass and witnesses. He chose the public library's Atrium, a stage where marble made even grifters speak softer, and where cameras looked like bright, patient moons. He tuned his breath to the regular pulse of crosswalk signals, touched the healed cut on his jaw that winter had made pale, and held fast to petty wishes. That the senior center keep its heat through February, that the youth boxing gym finally replace torn headgear, that the clinic on Hoyt Street never close early again. Small wishes anchor large choices. A sedan slid by at walking speed, a dark pane showing him tired eyes and careful shoes. He ducked into a bodega, bought water he did not want, and studied a pyramid of limes like an accountant studies debt terms. When he came back out, the sedan had dissolved into traffic. Fear prefers narrow hallways. He gave it boulevards and bright foyers. He walked the long way toward the library, past a mural of a heron blue as evening, past a pawn shop where guitars slept under tags that read as prayers, past a barber sweeping hair that looked like punctuation left on the floor after a loud chapter. At the steps he paused to read the dedication cut into stone about citizens and study, a sentence that felt stubborn in a useful way. Inside, the detector blinked, the guard nodded, and the air smelled of paper and lemon. He texted Detective Mara Ingram one word, arrived, and sat at a table under the glass roof, placing the paper bag where 4 camera domes could testify without bias. He did not open the ledger. He kept his hands visible, his chin level, his back straight, and his voice quiet inside his chest. He did this to remind himself that choice is posture. Shadows lengthened on the marble. A boy traced letters on a picture book with a finger that did not tremble. A librarian with silver hair shelved returns with a rhythm that turned caution into music. Ronan moved his chair 3 centimeters for a cleaner sightline to the guard desk, and waited for the men who loved leverage more than books. They arrived like a rumor wanting legs. One in a linen jacket, one in a hoodie with cuffs too clean. The linen voice tried friendly and used his surname like a blank key. Ronan answered by studying the camera dome instead of their eyes, a refusal that tightened both smiles. He thought of the note inside the cover, "Give to the library," under glass, and felt resolve return. He drank water he did not need and let buildings quiet talk. 2 afternoons before the message that forced his choice, Ronan had repaired the donation log for a clinic whose lights kept failing at dusk. The director, Lydia Morell, wore rolled sleeves and a stare that made waste feel indecent. She thanked him with a nod and a cup of coffee that tasted like burnt sugar, then returned to intake forms where names arrived with trembling handwriting. That small gratitude carried home like a lamp. It sharpened every decision that followed, because he knew the men behind the ledger would use pressure inside the charity if they could not move him alone. He opened the lockbox under his bed, set the ledger on the table, and stared at dates that matched nights he avoided remembering. He planned against shadow with daylight. He called Detective Ingram, who answered as if each word wore gloves. They agreed on the Atrium, under glass with security and honest angles. He photocopied 10 pages, sealed them, and slid 3 beneath his insole as proof within proof. He walked the library at lunch to study sightlines. He counted cameras, measured steps, timed the guards' rounds, learned the squeak in the east door, and noted a blind area near the elevator that he would avoid. At home he rehearsed the path from entry to table, moving past a chair and a counter like they were columns. He wrote a list on the fridge: rice, laces, soap, not for errands but for balance. He boiled pasta, ate standing, washed the pot until the steel reflected his face without distortion, and allowed himself 3 names to call if the plan broke. Naming them steadied him. In the morning he polished shoes that had never run, chose a jacket with deep pockets, and placed the ledger in a plain envelope inside the bag, sealing the seam with a pencil mark only he would recognize. On Ashfield he stopped at a newsstand and read headlines about a council hearing on transit cuts, evidence that systems beg for maintenance the way people beg for fairness. He crossed the plaza where bronze founders gazed at a skyline they would not have recognized, then stood under the library's cornice to let his pulse slow. Inside he mapped exits again. He located the fountain's hush and parallel parked his fear beside it. 2 men entered from opposite doors as if trained by the same hand. Their timing was not perfect, which told him the hand was new. The linen jacket carried a phone and a smile practiced in mirrors. The hoodie kept eyes low, the posture of someone who trusts surprise. Ronan texted 1 word, "Now," and lifted the bag an inch off the table to remind his fingers that release would come on his command. He watched the guard adjust his belt. He watched a toddler press both palms to the glass balustrade and leave clouds like soft stamps. He watched light slant from the roof and felt the old life grow thinner, not gone, just losing shape. The men reached conversational distance and tried his name. He let the sound pass like a bus he did not need. He answered with a question that was not phrased as a question. This exchange happens only where the cameras can see it. The jacket smiled wider. The hoodie shifted a half step. He remembered the gym, the clinic, the senior center, and chose to have more witnesses than regrets. A clock chimed and gave the hour shape. He let that sound draw a line between threat and record, kept both palms flat, and showed he would choose when. The linen jacket set a phone on the table and pressed play. Out of the small speaker came a younger Ronan, leaving a hard voicemail about a missing envelope and books balanced off record. A voice he had buried under better days. Leverage loves yesterday. He let the recording run out and looked up at the camera dome, not at the men. That glance announced terms. He stood and lifted the bag to chest height, not high enough to taunt, high enough to be seen across the room. Detective Ingram stepped into view on the mezzanine, posture easy, pace measured, a citizen taking stairs. Security watched the triangle close. 2 men, 1 witness, 1 guard with a hand already near his radio. The jacket spoke of compromise. The hoodie spoke by closing distance. Ronan answered by moving toward the stairs. Ingram came down without flourish, counting steps the way a steady mind counts breaths. Halfway, chain of custody began. The envelope left Ronan's fingers and found the detectives like change crossing a counter. Ordinary except for the air it cleared. The jacket reached and met a hand that was not Ronan's. The guard said 2 words in a tone that returned the room to law. The men retreated, curse volume reduced by marble. Somewhere, a child laughed at a picture book's surprise, and that light sound landed like a benediction. Paper rustled. Water hummed. The ledger became evidence. The threat became theater. The theater ended when the curtain of procedure fell. Ingram leaned close and said they would talk soon. He also said that people who change the direction of their days deserve sleep. Ronan sat because sitting is what civilians do when the dangerous part has passed. He counted blessings, a roof that held, a plant that refused to die, a future measured by ordinary mornings. He walked home under a sky that was clearing by degrees. At his table he wrote a list, mouthguards, soap envelopes, coffee for Mrs. Duarte, and tied new laces with the slow care of a man investing in tomorrow. The case moved forward in filings and corridors that kept their cool. Ronan remained where he lived. He balanced petty cash. He called the clinic to confirm weekend coverage. He flagged a grant line for the gym, so a second trainer could take Saturdays. He noted a streetlight still dark 2 blocks east, and sent the ticket number to the council page. Weeks later, when the charges landed, he allowed himself 1 victory lap on the sidewalk by the Heron mural. The paint had been freshened, the bird's eye looked less tired. He took that as a sign that cities can heal edges while keeping their lines. He walked to the library at noon and stood under the glass again, just to see the sky held up by patience and bolts. He opened a new notebook with grid paper and wrote at the top, "Numbers hold if hands hold them." He started a budget revision for the clinic that did not only keep the lights on, but added a second nurse on Sundays and a line for winter coats traded at cost. He signed the bottom with tidy letters that felt like a small oath. Outside, a bus sighed and moved. Inside, the fountain hummed and did not ask for applause. The city would keep testing whoever tried to do right. The city would also keep a seat for those who passed. Ronan sharpened his pencil and liked what the columns made. He closed the notebook, breathed once, and let the quiet settle like dust after rain, harmless.